In our family, cooking isn't just about feeding people. It's about creating something bigger than ourselves. It's the day everyone puts aside their busy lives, gathers around, and remembers where we come from. Today, the star of the show is a 10 kilograms fish, a giant that's more than just dinner. It's a tradition. The fish arrived early this morning, wrapped in layers of paper and tied with twine. It was carried in like a prized treasure. The moment it was placed on the counter, it felt like the beginning of something grand. Its sheer size left everyone marveling. How are we even going to cook this? Someone joked. But there wasn't really any doubt. We've been doing this for years, long before recipes were written down or cooking shows became a thing. The kitchen came alive almost immediately. Knives hit the cutting board with a steady rhythm. Pots clanged, and voices overlapped in a chaotic yet comforting melody. The smell of fresh herbs filled the air as my grandmother plucked leaves from a bundle she'd grown herself. "Always fresh, never dried," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. It was her way of reminding us that shortcuts weren't allowed. Uncle Joe, the self-proclaimed expert in all things fish-related, examined our catch. "This is perfect," he declared, running his fingers over the scales. You can tell by the shine. His tone was serious, as if the fish had passed some kind of sacred test. He's the kind of person who turns every task into an event, and today was no different. Of course, there were skeptics. My cousin, a teenager glued to their phone, looked up just long enough to ask, "Why can't we just order pizza?" The room fell silent for a moment, but then laughter broke out. Even they couldn't resist the energy in the air. As we prepared the fish, stories started to flow, some about past feasts, others about mishaps in the kitchen. There was the time we accidentally burned the stuffing because someone got distracted telling a joke. Or the year the fish was so big it didn't fit in the oven, and we had to improvise with a grill outside in the snow. These stories weren't just memories. They were part of the recipe. Grandmother shared one of her favorite tales as she worked, how this tradition began long before we were born. Back then, she said, this wasn't just food. It was a celebration, a way to honor the harvest, the sea, and the hands that worked to bring it all together. Her words carried weight, grounding us in a history that felt both distant and immediate. The preparation wasn't without its challenges. A fish this size requires precision and patience, and not everyone in the kitchen had both. Uncle Joe nearly dropped it while transferring it to the cleaning station, causing a collective gasp. The teenager groaned. This is why we have modern kitchens. But even they cracked a smile when the crisis was averted. The stuffing ingredients started piling up on the counter. Onions, garlic, tomatoes, fresh parsley, and a blend of spices that only grandmother seemed to know by heart. Each item was chopped, diced, and mixed with care, turning into something far greater than the sum of its parts. This, she said, pointing to the bowl of stuffing, is what gives the fish its soul. There was a moment of quiet as the fish was cleaned and prepped, a rare lull in the otherwise bustling kitchen. It felt like everyone understood the importance of getting this part right. The silence wasn't awkward, it was reverent. Finally, the fish was ready to be stuffed, but not before a blessing. It wasn't formal or religious, just a whispered wish from grandmother. May this meal bring us closer, as it always does. Her words lingered in the air, adding an intangible ingredient to the recipe. By the end of this part of the process, the fish had gone from being just an ingredient to something almost alive with meaning. It wasn't just about the food. It was about the hands that prepared it, the stories told, and the bonds strengthened along the way. With the fish cleaned and ready, the real work began. Preparing a dish like this wasn't just a matter of cooking. It was about precision and respect for the tradition. The stuffing had to be perfect, a harmonious blend of flavors that complemented the fish without overpowering it. The ingredients were laid out like a painter's palette. Fresh onions and garlic, chopped finely, formed the base. Tomatoes were diced with care, their juices adding a touch of sweetness. Parsley leaves were plucked one by one, filling the air with their earthy aroma. A mix of spices sat in small bowls. paprika for depth, cumin for warmth, and a hint of chili for a subtle kick. This wasn't just cooking. It was artistry. Grandmother took charge of the stuffing, her hands moving with practiced ease. The secret, she said, as if revealing a closely guarded treasure, is balance. Too much of one spice, and you ruin the whole dish. She worked methodically, tasting as she went, adjusting the seasoning until it was just right. Meanwhile, a debate broke out in the kitchen about the stuffing's consistency. Uncle Joe insisted it should be chunky, while my mother argued for a smoother texture. Chunky brings out the flavor, he declared, waving a spoon for emphasis. Smooth blends better, she countered, equally adamant. In the end, Grandmother settled it with a simple, it's neither. It's both. Now stop arguing and keep stirring. As the stuffing came together, the focus shifted back to the fish. Its cavity was wide and ready, a blank canvas waiting to be filled. A layer of lemon slices was placed inside first, their acidity cutting through the richness of the dish. Then came the stuffing, spooned in gently but firmly, packed just enough to hold its shape without bursting. There was a collective sigh of satisfaction as the last bit of stuffing went in. The fish was then carefully sewn shut, a delicate task requiring steady hands and a sharp needle. Grandmother took the lead here, her movements precise and deliberate. This part is crucial, she said. If the stuffing spills out during cooking, all that effort goes to waste. Once the fish was secured, it was brushed with a marinade made from olive oil, garlic, and a pinch of salt. This would ensure the skin crisped up beautifully during cooking. The skin, Uncle Joe said, is the first thing people see. If it's not perfect, they'll judge the whole dish. The cooking method was as traditional as the recipe itself. A large clay pot, passed down through generations, was brought out from storage. It was the kind of pot that seemed to hold the memories of every meal it had ever cooked. The fish was placed inside, surrounded by slices of potatoes and carrots to absorb the drippings and add another layer of flavor. The pot was then sealed with a thick dough, trapping in the heat and moisture. This was an old technique, one rarely used in modern kitchens, but it ensured the fish cooked evenly while retaining its natural juices. Patience is the key here, Grandmother said as she placed the pot in the wood-fired oven. You can't rush something this special. The oven itself was a relic, its blackened interior a testament to years of use. It crackled to life as wood was added, the flames licking the sides of the pot. The scent of burning oak filled the air, mingling with the aroma of the fish. It was a smell that brought back memories of countless family gatherings, each one as vibrant as the last. As the fish cooked, the family gathered around, talking and laughing. The teenager, who had initially dismissed the whole process, was now sitting at the counter, nibbling on scraps of leftover stuffing. Even they couldn't resist the allure of tradition. Every so often, someone would peek into the oven, though no one dared open the pot. It's like waiting for a surprise, Uncle Joe said, his excitement palpable. Time seemed to slow as the fish cooked, each passing minute heightening the anticipation. Grandmother, ever the teacher, used the waiting time to share more stories. She spoke of how, in her youth, cooking a fish like this was a communal effort. Neighbors would bring ingredients, and everyone would work together. It wasn't just about the food, she said. It was about the community, about everyone contributing something, no matter how small. The smell grew stronger, wafting through the house and out into the yard. It was the kind of scent that made your mouth water and your stomach rumble. Not yet, Grandmother said when someone asked if it was done. Good things take time. By the end of the stage, the fish had transformed from a raw ingredient into something almost magical. It wasn't just a dish anymore. It was a symbol of everything the family stood for: patience, love, and the power of coming together. The anticipation was almost unbearable, but everyone knew the wait would be worth it. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The clay pot, sealed tightly with dough, was carefully pulled from the oven, its surface slightly brown from the heat. The room went quiet, the kind of silence that only comes from anticipation. Grandmother, holding a small knife, broke the seal with a deliberate motion, and the first wave of steam escaped, carrying with it the unmistakable aroma of the fish. The smell was intoxicating. It was rich and earthy, with notes of garlic, herbs, and the sweetness of roasted vegetables. Everyone leaned in closer, their faces lighting up as the fish was revealed. Its golden, crisp skin glistened in the light, and the stuffing, peeking out from the edges, looked perfectly cooked. It was a masterpiece, a testament to hours of effort and generations of knowledge. Grandmother took charge of transferring the fish to a large serving platter, her hands steady despite the weight of it. The vegetables, now caramelized and soaked with juices, were arranged around the fish, adding to the visual feast. There was a collective murmur of approval, a quiet acknowledgement of the beauty in front of us. Plates were quickly distributed, and the fish was carved with care. The first slice revealed the stuffing inside, its texture soft but holding together perfectly. A small piece was placed on everyone's plate, along with a spoonful of vegetables and a wedge of lemon. The room buzzed with excitement as the first bites were taken. The reaction was immediate. Grandmother nodded in approval, her expression satisfied but unsurprised. Uncle Joe, ever the critic, took a moment before declaring this might be the best one yet. Even the teenager, who had been skeptical from the start, mumbled through a mouthful, "It's actually really good." Laughter followed, light and genuine, the kind that only comes from shared happiness. As the meal continued, so did the stories. This time, they weren't just about past traditions, but about the day itself. The moment Uncle Joe almost dropped the fish, the teenagers sneaking bites of stuffing when they thought no one was looking. Each memory was recounted with laughter, adding to the growing list of stories tied to this dish. Grandmother, her plate nearly empty, leaned back and spoke. "It's not just about the food, you know," she said, her voice soft but firm. "It's about this. All of us together. That's what makes it special." Her words hung in the air, a reminder of why we had gathered in the first place. The meal stretched on, the way meals like this always do. People went back for seconds and even thirds, unwilling to let the moment end. Conversations flowed easily, jumping from one topic to another, weaving a tapestry of voices and laughter. It wasn't just a dinner. It was a celebration, a reminder of the connections that held us together. As the last bites were taken and plates began to clear, there was a sense of contentment in the room. The fish, once a daunting task, had become a centerpiece not just for the table but for the day itself. It had brought everyone together, bridging gaps and reminding us of the importance of tradition. Before the evening ended, Grandmother stood and raised her glass. "To family," she said, her voice steady and full of emotion, "and to the traditions that keep us close." Everyone echoed her words, their glasses clinking together in a harmonious chorus. The day wasn't perfect. There had been arguments over spices, near disasters, and moments of doubt, but that was part of its charm. It was real, messy, and beautiful, just like the family itself. The fish was more than a dish. It was a symbol of everything that mattered: love, effort, and the joy of being together. As the kitchen was cleaned and the last few leftovers were packed away, the teenager, who had been so reluctant at the start, turned to Grandmother and said, "Can we do this again next year?" Grandmother smiled, her eyes twinkling with pride. "Of course," she said, "but next time you're helping with the stuffing." With that, the day came to an end, but the memory of it lingered. The fish may have been eaten, but its impact remained, woven into the fabric of our family. It was a reminder of what truly mattered, of the power of tradition to bring people together. And as we left the table, full and happy, we carried with us not just the taste of the meal, but the warmth of the moments we had shared.